Today we're going to look at the end behavior of polynomial functions. So what you need to do is open up the Google Doc that is our unit agenda and go to the section labeled end behavior. And here is a link to Desmos for an activity that you're going to be doing today. So we're going to explore how the degree of the polynomial function affects the shape of its graph, and it can determine the maximum number of turning points, so places where the graph changes directions, and also how it affects the end behavior, or the direction of the graph to the far left and far right. So click on the activity in Desmos. Now, here are the instructions. First, you will need to be signed into Desmos, into the website. So let's make sure that we are signed in to our account. Then you're going to click on the title and rename the sheet with your last name and 5-1 activity. Now make sure that you save often so you don't lose any of your work. What we're going to do is there's going to be several sections, and you're going to graph some functions and answer the questions for each section. When we're finished, we'll save our work, and then we will click up here on the share icon, and you will share it via email, and you will send it to my email address, khorton@presentationacademy.org, when we're finished. But for now, we'll go through the first part just to give you an idea of what you're supposed to be doing. So we're told the degree of the polynomial affects the shape of its graph and determines the maximum number of turning points, or places where the graph changes direction. It also affects the end behavior, or directions, of the graph to the far left and far right. So the first part we're going to look at is second degree functions. So let's make sure that our function is graphed here. Slide this over a little bit. In order to graph or ungraph something, you can just click on this circle out to the side of it. So we're looking at second degree functions. So these are our quadratics, and we know that they form a parabola. All quadratics have this parabolic shape to them. Now we want to create two more functions with a degree of 2, where a is positive, so we want this to be positive. And then we want to compare the functions and answer the following questions. So I'm just going to make up any quadratic function. So y equals, I know, 2x squared plus 3x minus 1. Okay, so that's another one. And I can create one that is y equals 1/2 x squared plus 2. Okay. So I've just created any two other quadratic functions as long as they have a degree of 2. Okay, it doesn't matter. So you should create your own different functions just so you can look at some different examples. The first question says, describe the end behavior of the function. So when we're talking about the end behavior, we're talking about what happens as x gets larger and larger and larger. What happens at the very end of this function? What's going on here? Okay, and we're really talking about what direction is it going. So in this case, as x gets larger, our function is going up. So that's what's happening on the far right. So if you keep going, if you put in really big numbers for x, okay, think about these functions, y is just going to keep getting larger and larger. On the other side, we want to look what's happening over here on the end behavior on this side of the function to the far left. So as x gets really small, okay, or more negative, our function is still increasing. It's still going up. So that's what we're talking about, the end behavior. So we would describe the end behavior of these three functions that we've graphed. We could just say the end behavior is up and up. So on the left side it's going up, and on the right side it's going up. Question number 2. How many turning points does each function have? When we're talking about turning points, we're talking about where it changes direction. So let's look at each of these functions. And we can turn some of these on and off just to look. If we look at x squared, let's look where it changes direction. Well, from here it's coming down, and then it changes direction here and it goes back up. Okay, so that's one turning point. Let's look at the other one. Okay, we have a similar situation here. Our function is decreasing until it gets to the vertex, and then it changes direction, so now it's increasing. So this would be a turning point as well. So this has one turning point. And we'll look at our third function, and we can see that the function is decreasing, and then it changes direction and starts increasing. So it has one turning point. So each of these functions has one turning point. So we could say each function has one turning point. Okay. So each of these sections, so now we've answered the questions for second degree functions. Each of these sections have similar questions. You're going to graph third degree functions, fourth degree functions, fifth degree functions, and answer those questions based on the graph. Now, if you want to turn on and off certain entire sections, I can click on this folder here to turn off all of my part 1 work if I want to get that out of the way, so you don't have to delete anything. So then part 2 would be similar. You would come up with 2 other cubic or third degree functions and answer those questions. After you've done all of those third degree, fourth degree, and fifth degree functions, come down here to part 5, results. And you're going to compare some of the things you've looked at with the different degree functions to be able to answer these questions. Okay, so there's 12 questions in total. And you should have all the relevant graphs in there as well. When you're finished, again, we'll come over here to share the graph, and we'll click on email, and you're going to send it to my email address, and that is how you will submit your work for the day. So that will be the only assignment that we have today. There are some Khan Academy exercises on describing how end behavior works. If you want to start looking at those, you are welcome to do so, but we will talk about some of those examples in class on Thursday. Enjoy your snow day.